On one of the first days of school, the classroom teacher, Miss Smith, had a look at their class list of what students they had in their Year 3 class. The teacher was able to identify some familiar names on the class list as they have worked with some of these students in previous years. Miss Smith had spoken to the other teachers and shared with her colleagues the student she was going to have this year. Her colleagues in the staff room noticed two names of the students, and their names were Kai and Matt. The teachers all began discussing these two students and saying to Miss Smith multiple comments such as, "Good luck with those students. It's going to be a very long year with those two. Have fun managing those two students." There were multiple other comments made about these two students. Miss Smith made a note in her mind that her colleagues were making comments that are related to the deficit discourse. Miss Smith did not want these comments to bother her and wanted to have a good year of teaching this Year 3 class. In the first 2 weeks of school, these two students were struggling to set in with their classroom teacher, Miss Smith. These two students were struggling to get along with one another and would always compete for the attention of either the classroom teacher or the SLSO that was in the room for additional support at the start of the year. Kai and Matt would tend to run around the classroom, chase each other around the room, and then the chasing would end up to the point of where they would start hitting each other and throwing objects at one another. The behaviour ended up getting so bad until the point where Miss Smith ended up sitting down with the SLSO and discussing possible ways that they can both support these two students. The teacher and the SLSO ended up creating a rewards chart for one of the students, which was Matt. Miss Smith ended up making this chart to encourage and promote Matt to complete his work, whether it was working with the SLSO in a small group setting or with his classroom teacher, Miss Smith. In addition to this reward chart for Matt, Miss Smith developed a behaviour log to note down what triggers the big behaviours for Matt, and this would be written by Miss Smith or the SLSO. For Kai, Miss Smith and the SLSO ended up implementing a whole class reward system so that Kai didn't feel left out and would overall manage the behaviour in the classroom. It was noted between the classroom teacher and the SLSO that they could not separate these students as they were both working at the same academic level, and it was near impossible to put them in different groups as it would create more work for the classroom teacher. The SLSO ended up taking this small group of students into a breakout room which was quiet and small that had both Kai and Matt in the same area. The plan the SLSO made was to ensure that Kai and Matt weren't sitting near each other and that there were students sitting in between the boys so they weren't triggering each other and annoying each other. Once this plan had been put into place and there was more consistency of the SLSO coming into the room to assist with the students, Miss Smith had noted a decline in the negative behaviour in the classroom. Matt's overall behaviour in the classroom had started to decline and started listening to Miss Smith and the SLSO so he could work towards getting a stamp in his behaviour book. And then once he had enough stamps, he could go home and show his parents his improvement in his behaviour. Kai's behaviour as well also declined as he wasn't retaliating back to Matt and knew the classroom expectations were set out by Miss Smith at the start of the year. Kai also knew what he was working towards getting a reward if he collected enough stickers on his chart, which managed the behaviour of Kai as well. Miss Smith noted as well, with the decline of the poor behaviour by Kai and Matt, that there was a turnaround pedagogy, and it was successful throughout the strategies that Miss Smith implemented with the assistance of the SLSO.